Good evening,
Sheilah to take their tags off.
and welcome to this very special Centennial event. I am celebrating my 30th year as an art professor here at Emmanuel College, and also Emmanuel has been very much a part of my life. I grew up knowing about Emmanuel because my mother actually went to school here. She was in the class of 1946, and I was a member of the class of 1973. So it's an honor, it's really family here. I'm also honored to serve as the Louise Doherty Wyant Professor. This professorship in this event series was established by Dr. Jim Wyant in his late wife Louise's memory. She was a member of the class of 1963. And it's also in honor of Sister Anne Cyril Delaney. And I know some of you may remember Sister Anne Cyril, who is an incredible teacher. She was an English teacher, was taught here for 26 years, and those of you who remember, she was really dynamic.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here as we celebrate the rich history of Emmanuel College and the accomplishments of its faculty, its graduates, and its students. Most students arrive here as an empty canvas. Sure, they have their paints and their charcoals that they accumulated along the road to the front door, the ornate front door of Emmanuel. But what will they create? Timing is everything, it is said, because it's true. And as a proud major of Emmanuel's history department, I'd like to share a little bit of my journey in the context of that historic moment in time. The British pop invasion was in full cry when I got here, but our dress code was strict. And I seem to recall that I just narrowly missed a gloves requirement. I'm still trying to track down what the exact gloves requirement was. I happen to love wearing gloves, but I don't like being told to. The war in Vietnam, assassinations, student protests, the women's movement were the chaotic soundtrack of our lives. Most of us face this reality with energy, determination, and some of us with defiance. And so what is an all-women's Catholic school to do? You would think a student leader would be a pariah. But what I found was I spent a lot of time in the office of the then president of the school system, Marie Barry, and she had so many interesting questions and observations. She did tell me before I left that I should work at a reservation in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I never understood why she thought that. And looking back on it, I sort of think that would probably have been a good idea. And of course, so many of us enjoyed hanging around the sociology offices and talking to Sister Maria Augusta, which was such a safe, free-thinking haven in a world gone mad. Who would we be? Could we change the world? Yes, you can, our school told us. You can and you must.
Following the end of World War I, Emmanuel opened its doors before women had a constitutional right to vote. Imagine the courage. In her memoirs, Sister Helen Madeline Ingraham, the first dean, and she was dean for 30 years, wrote, "Establishing Emmanuel was like a mountain that had to be moved. And then again, it was a dream." She and the Sisters of Notre Dame believed then, as we do today, that education transforms lives.
I don't think we recognize life as we're living it to a great degree. Sometimes we have to look in the rearview mirror and say, what did that mean? It meant everything in establishing ethics and values and strategic thinking, critical judgment. I don't read an article anywhere without looking to see who wrote it first. And so it's a treasure, this place. Emmanuel was then and is now what the sisters envisioned it to be. Despite a world changing and the tumult that accompanies that, It's a beacon, and it certainly was for so many of us, even in 1959.
I was here from 63 to 67. It was right on the edge of every change. Feminist movement, civil rights movement, anti-war movement, and we were involved in all of it. And a very difficult time for all institutions. And as you can imagine, Catholic institutions and women's institutions, you put those two together, very difficult time to try to figure it out. It was such an era of change, and we were right in the middle. This is when Kennedy died, right? I will never forget that, how we all ended up coming to the chapel. It was just like everybody moved from everywhere to come. Again, Sister Marie Augusta Neal was so much a part of all of those discussions about poverty and the issues around feminism, and she did a study of nuns across the world and their role in poverty and change, which made her very controversial in the Catholic Church, and the issues around poverty. So in some ways, it was a very interesting a time to be here, and the juxtaposition of the mission, which is to serve the poor and social justice and community service, at the same time being in a place of with some rules and restrictions, it was a very difficult time to figure out how to make that work in terms of all the protests that are going on.
Well, I think in the ever Emmanuel, ever changing, I think it is always Emmanuel. I think that it is in the sense of the values, the mission, the community, the social justice, all of that is present still here, and God knows so needed today. So that while the college itself has grown, enlarged physically, it also has done that academically. It has had the vision to look forward and see what was needed and implemented it, so that, yes, we're in tune with the times and more, but we're still us. And I think that is a very profound need, and it's a profound thing that has been accomplished through all these years.
And what I would say is Emmanuel's ability to pivot and change with the times is not by accident. It's really because there's been a leadership that has paid attention to the data, to the analysis, to the trends, has thought about what's coming down the pike in terms of the kinds of students, what high school students are looking for, and tried to make changes to the institution to be ready for that next level. And I think some of the changes that we haven't talked about, the change in diversity is huge at Emmanuel. When I was here, there were 12 students of color. Many more now. There's an Office of Multicultural Affairs and so many other resources to support diversity.
And I think one of the things that Emmanuel has done really well as far as reacting to external pressures in the past decade or so has been with construction. And so in my time at this school, there was a need to expand the sciences beyond what we had in Marion Hall. So what do? You build a science building. But you don't just build a science building, you build the best possible science building with cutting edge equipment and all of the resources that they use at neighboring institutions and high-ranking medical schools, et cetera. Fast forward 10 or so years. What's our external pressure? The competition for students becomes immense. What do? You build an 18-story residence hall to say, hey, guess what, we're here and we have exactly what you're looking for.